Okay, we're going to talk about the standard progression format, and part of this video will be me reading the chapter on it, but then interspersing into it finer points that may not come across as well in the printed page. So I'll start by reading the chapter. So human beings, I figure, are better at concocting creative solutions to problems, whereas computers are better at crunching numbers. The standard progression format, known as SPF, is 100% numbers, and it's lots of numbers, in fact. Well over 250,000 numbers are in a 64-page SPF, and as humans, we're less suited in having this volume of numbers in our heads. And you'll see as I get into this video how I ritualize some of the creation or the behavior to write page 1 of an SPF. If you learn to systematically create biddings using the construct of the SPF, we as humans can leverage our superior creative ability to solve problems. So let the computers do what they do and let the humans do what they do is what I'm driving at. Knowing how to create the SPF, though, is a skill that a human should definitely have. And if you find that you're building a need to build several pages of SPFs, to create or yield or harvest biddings, you may want to look into some software to do that. We do lots of key work, but very rarely do I need to spend a lot of time creating that. Occasionally, I've written out several pages of biddings, but there's easier ways to do it, such as let the factory do it, okay? And maybe buy some software, or just do it, is the bottom line. I have in this chapter, in this primer, to explain the SPF, and that is this chapter itself. The SPF is the generated list of potential biddings that a given KBA can produce. I'm of the opinion it is a very valuable skill to possess, to know how to build by hand a group of pages from which you can pin cylinders. So the reason that I'm a fan of knowing how to do it is so that if you were to move or migrate to having software do it, you can understand, in my opinion, what the software is doing and then how to set it up. Because if you know how to build an SPF, you kind of know what the computer is asking for and how the instructions you give the software will change the standard progression format that it's going to produce for you. So this understanding, I think, is invaluable. When you are progressing pages of the standard progression format, you won't progress all 64 pages if you only need 35 keys. Simply stated, you progress only what you need, as you will likely do 100 times more 12-cylinder systems than you will key 1,000-cylinder systems. And the add-on to that is also being mindful to, and in Jerome Andrews' book, which I actually have, I will grab it. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to use this necessarily as a prop. This book is invaluable. I would recommend purchasing it. It's available from the Aloha bookstore as far as I know. But he talks a lot about a TMK register, meaning it's a document that you've created that allows you to record TMKs and using coded or indirect or cryptographic references know exactly what master keys you've used. So if you're doing a bunch of 12-cylinder systems, which you will be, 2 cylinders, 30 cylinders, but 1,000, that's probably unlikely. A different part of the door hardware industry is going to end up doing that contract work where they're building a mid-story, a mid-height office building. The factory's going to do all that work. You're probably not going to see that pass through your shop. So since you're dealing with a majority of smaller scope projects, it's handy to keep that TMK register so that you are not reusing the same TMK. Don't ever do that. And make it such that you are creating new top master keys, unless, of course, you're extending a client's system. So progress the pages that you need, or the page that you need. This will allow you to create bidding lists, to interpret existing bidding lists, and to troubleshoot issues with keyings when they arise. The skill I'm speaking of creating a standard progression format page, it's going to translate into revenue for you and your company, is the bottom line. Being able to do that, being able to charge for it, being able to manage and maintain that system, and in the future, bring in new revenue. Let's move on to the next chapter. Okay, let's move on to the next chapter here. The SPF is literally a generated list that is broken up into pages, and later in this video I'll demonstrate how we build one page, and then how a second page would look, and a third page, and a fourth page. And if you get that concept, then you'll see exactly how all the pages are built. The quantity of pages that are generated is based on the system you are working within, whether it be total position progression, limited position progression, rotating constant. Single versus two-step, along with how many chambers are in the cylinder, are directly related as well. In a standard progression format, if you're dealing in a two-step system, you'll have blocks that have 4 biddings per block, regardless of it being 5, 6, or 7 pin. In a single step, you'll likely have 5 biddings per block, 5, 6, or 7 pin, whatever that might be. So the point of that is that the quantity the quantity of pages that you will create is related to how many biddings you're going to create. That's based on whether or not it's single step or two step. That hopefully by this time isn't a concept that you're not familiar with. We can name different manufacturers: Schlage, two-step; Kwikset, single step; Corbin, Russwin, System 70 is single step; Pre-System 70 is two-step. Let's move on. The SPF allows you to see visually what possible changes you can use for a master key system, and does so in a way that prevents you from contaminating your key system, as the changes are guaranteed to be listed just once. So what's nice about writing it all down or having a computer create it for you is you can just see on a single sheet 64 biddings if it's in two-step. You're going to know exactly what you can work with. And I'll demonstrate it shortly. When you pull out your incidental master keys as well, you can really flex your muscles. You can wield the full power of the standard progression system to very competently and very powerfully key a system. And as I had just said, change keys, biddings, are guaranteed to be listed just once. Provided you progress the page without error, and you always double check your work, right? Then you will have those listed just once. The only trouble you can get into is when you have Meson keying and introducing controlled or uncontrolled cross keying, which is making different keys operate the same cylinder that are on the same level as the original key, which will create runaway incidental keys that will operate a cylinder beyond those originally intended. While discussing the art of cross-keying is a topic beyond this primer, we will touch on incidental keys later in this primer. Meson keying, cross-keying, both controlled and uncontrolled, is tricky business, and you will either need to learn it completely so that you can navigate through those waters without, running ashore, so to speak, or you're going to leave it up to the factory to safely do that. You must outline that requirement at the inception of the system. So moving forward, the SPF allows you to determine, do you have enough stuff? And do you have enough stuff is a direct quote of Jerome Andrews from a class that I was in spring and early spring of 2021. I was quite starstruck, I think. Here's this book that I read from this guy, and it taught me so much, and it did so elegantly. And I'm sitting in this first class, and it's conducted Zoom because it's a COVID era thing. And I'm looking, that default view comes up of the Zoom group, and I see a name there, and it's Jerome Andrews. And I thought, well, how many Jerome Andrews are there? I'm betting that there's one. Anyway, I was tickled to be able to say to him, thank you for writing that book. So Jerome said, do you have enough stuff? Meaning he had intimated that he was always concerned as a very early young locksmith that he was able to create a system to incorporate all of his clients' needs. The standard progression format allows you to incontrovertibly derive that. So you'll look at it and know, do you have enough stuff? What Jerome means, can you achieve the quantity of changes your project requires? And will you be able to deliver to the client a system that will meet their needs today and in the future to the best of your ability to see into the future? So I've been in situations where a client comes in and says, yeah, I need these 2 locks keyed. Okay, it's a lock and a deadbolt, or 2 locks and 2 deadbolts. So I key him, and he gives me his master, and I create the change key. And then he comes back 2 weeks later and has 2 more. A month later, he has 4 more of each. And I start to ask, what are we doing here? Oh, I've got a 16-unit apartment building. Whoa, wait a minute. Hold the phone, Governor. Because I didn't record that first bidding, and I didn't realize that I had to plan for the future. And you've got to be able to ask probing questions and hopefully get pretty decent answers back so that you can plan for the future. You can't have someone walk in a lock and 2 locks, 2 deadbolts, which turned out to be apartment 4. Comes in 2 weeks later with apartment 8, and then he comes in with apartments 12 and 16 because they're all in that one tower. And then you realize, whoa, what have we done? What were my biddings so far? I've got to record those so I can map out. And the client said, yeah, we're doing the whole building. Okay, probably should have said when you walked in, we're doing a 16 flat building. Because the approach would have been very different. Meaning, here's a master key, here are these locks, make a new key, work them. Okay, great, I did. So I said to the client, you want me to remove whatever pins were in there? We don't care what was in there. I'm going to strip it all out. I'm going to make your master key and a new change key work. Yep, that's exactly what I want. Well, when you're putting it into a greater system, you've got to know all your biddings up front. So, can you deliver to the client what the client says he needs today and the ability to see into the future as best as possible? I didn't realize at that time in my career that it would have been quite prudent to ask some questions. You will not be shocked to learn, I'm moving forward now, you will not be shocked to learn the pages operate in factors of 4. We've been talking about in this primer factors of 4 quite a bit. Because it's a 2-step system, factors of 4 will continue to play a role. And because it's a result of it being a 6-pin, 10-depth, 2-step system that we're working within. Understanding the totality of the SPF is beyond this primer, but sticking to our 10-depth, 2-step system, there are some basic facts that we can outline. This system will generate 4,096 change keys. If you were to divide 4,096 by 64, that would be 64. That's where 64 pages comes in because you'll get 64 changes per page. We call those change keys theoretical change keys because we've just taken a TMK, a top master key, and we've made the KBA we've extruded through the KBA all of our changes. But some of those keys are not permissible for a variety of reasons. Whether it be max or it's a key that's 55444, you wouldn't really use that. Although you could, you probably would choose not to use that. There will be 64 keys on a page. There will be 64 pages generated to complete an entire extruded KBA, meaning our SPF for this KBA will be comprised of 64 pages. Again, 496 divided by 64. 64 divided by 4 is 16. There's another factor of 4. There are indeed 16 blocks on a page, and I'm going to demonstrate blocks. Each block will contain 4 biddings. There's another factor of 4. There will be 4 horizontal rows on a page, and each horizontal row will contain 4 blocks containing 4 change keys each. There will be 4 vertical columns on a page, and each vertical column will contain 4 blocks and 4 change keys each. Lots of factors of 4. Advanced topics and other facts include there will be block, row, column, page masters, a block master, a row master, a column, a vertical group master, a horizontal group master. You'll have many others on that page. And an example of other would be the every 4th key in a group of blocks. There'll be a master for that, which I'll show you. There will be one master that governs 16 pages, another master for the second group of 16. So 64 divided by 4 is 16. There will be a master that will just run 16 pages. There'll be another master that will run the next 16 pages, meaning pages 17 to 32. 33 to 48, 49 to 64. There'll be a master for each of those groups of 16 pages. And that's just where that is. We're going to create page 1 from this fictional SPF, and the layout I employ will be in the spirit of what a page from an SPF would look like when compared to other texts. Meaning, if you look at Jerome's book and Billy B. Edwards, both CMLs, by the way, Certified Master Locksmiths, Master King by the Numbers, and every other book that you could possibly have, and there are so many of them that I won't mention only because there's just too many to mention. And I've mentioned the ones that I continue to refer back to as if they were works of reference, and they are. What I'm going to show you is going to be similar to what you'll see everywhere else. Page 1, as would all pages, have the KBA on it, which will produce the TMK. Which will include the TMK. So on your SPF, on every page, you're going to have the TMK there. And that TMK is going to be contained within a KBA. Progression possibilities will be there. The sequence of progression will be there. Our 4 vertical, 4 horizontal sets of 4 blocks each. And we will look at a partially completed page as we scroll down. And what I'll do here is I'm going to switch to the screen view, and we're going to look at that all together. So let's do that now. Okay, here's page 1 of our SPF, and I'm going to recreate this by hand shortly, but this is what it's going to begin to look like after we progress all these biddings. And I wanted to switch to the camera view so that we could, look at these quick observations. When studying these progressions and you attempt to make sense of this rotating pattern, think of an odometer. An odometer that changes in increments of 2. Please note you will not see in your mental odometer the number used by the TMK. So what I'm saying there is, this is our odometer. And what you're not going to see as you rotate through your odometer are any of the biddings from the top master key. That's an inherent requirement of total position progression. So here's our odometer. This is what your odometer is right now. 692741. That's the mileage on this, so to speak. So as you drive down the street, it's going to go to 692743, then 45, then 47. It's going in multiples of 2, and we're skipping our TMK, which is 9. Then we go down here. What's the next column to rotate? Well, our second column has to go from 4 to 6, and that goes to 6, 1, 3, 5, and 7. So that's the mental odometer. Just think of the odometer, and it will help you proofread or check what you are rotating. There are loads of examples of factors of 4. We've talked about that already. Lots of 4s in here. we have progressed the first 64 changes in our system, and this is only page 1. There are 63 pages after this page, and I'll show shortly what the page 2 would look like. Note there are 16 blocks. Block is the industry term to describe each of the 16 tables of 6 columns and 4 rows each. So 16 blocks, 4 times 4. You've got 6 columns, 4 rows, 64 changes on a page. Note the 6th chamber of each block rotates its progression possibility every cell, as this is the A column in the sequence of progression. A rotates first and most often. A is always rotating in every change. Every bidding on the page will always be rotating that constantly. Note the 5th chamber in each block rotates its progression possibility in every horizontal block vertically, as this is the B column. Translation, it changes every 4 keys. These 4 get changed. 4 gets changed to a 6, to an 8, to a 0, because that's our progression possibilities in the B column, which is the 5th chamber. So it stands to reason that all the 4s are here. All the 6s are here. All the 8s are here. And what's interesting about that is if you know the KBA and you look at a bidding, as Lloyd Selber says, master keying bar tricks, you can guess, you can determine without looking at a sequence of progression where that is. So if the key is 692141. Well, 692147. So 692 doesn't tell you anything except it'll tell you the page that it's on. You'll know it's page 1. 1 means that it's going to be, and we've not talked about the C column yet, but the vertical columns are all 7s, then all 9s, then all 1s. So you'll know it's in the 3rd vertical group if it's a 1. If it's a 4, you're going to know it's in the 1st row. You know that it's in the 1st row. So we know it's this, and we know it's the 1st row. Forgive me, the 1st block. You know it's in the 1st block, not the 1st row, because it's a 4. But when we say it's a 7, you then know it's in the 4th row of that. So it's going to be the 3rd vertical group, the 1st horizontal group, the 4th key in that block is where that is. That would take some practice to be able to do, but if you study it long and hard enough, you'll say, oh, I see that pattern. And you will see that pattern. Note the 4th chamber in each block rotates its progression possibility every vertical column horizontally. So every vertical column, it changes horizontally. As this is the C column in the sequence of progression. Translation, it changes every 16 keys. So 1 through 16, 17 through 32. So it changes from this vertical group to this vertical group. 7 becomes 9, which becomes 1, which becomes 3. Fun fact, we could swap the direction of how B and C in the sequence of progression rotate in this page 1 of the SPF. What moved horizontally will now move vertically. So if we made this progression B and this progression C, we're now going to rotate this way and then this way. Nothing really changes. The key numbers will change. The order, but they're going to be all the same key numbers. You'll get them just in a different place on the page. The ordering does not matter. You will yield all the same change keys, just in a different order. And in fact, we can sort the SOP however we like, though there are factors that inform your decision of how to sort the sequence of progression, which we'll talk about. I have sorted our SOP as FEDCBA because it's just easy to think of an odometer. A rotates, then B, then C, then D, then E, then F. That's exactly how an odometer works, for the purpose of easy illustration and convenience. Again, same keys, just different order. To summarize, a page of the SPF, we have 64 changes broken up into 16 blocks that are separated in 4 vertical columns of 4 blocks and 4 horizontal rows of 4 blocks. Oops. Again, this pattern continues for an additional 63 pages. Can you guess what AA65 is? AA64 would be here, 692307. So AA65 has to be 694741 because we're going to rotate that D column next. We've already rotated all A, B, and C. So it has to be 694741. What did I come up with? Yeah, 694741. Can you guess what AA4096? Well, that's easy. It's just going to be 258307. After you've rotated everything, it'll be the bottom key. 2588307. 2588307. Yeah, that's what it is. If you study where these biddings occur in the KBA and how the SPF is built, it will help you understand clearly how the SPF is built. So if you study it, yeah, you're going to learn better how it operates. Now that we have a basic understanding of the structure of a page in the SPF, let's fill in some convenient details. And this moves on to, there is a single master key that will operate only this page. This is called a 3-pin master, as it shares in common with the TMK 3 cuts. Can you guess what the page master, and page master is the proper term, what the page master would be for this page? If you stared at this, and I'm going to do it shortly, I'll demonstrate it. You can see the page master has to be 692 because you have 692 everywhere. Then on these last 3 chambers, or I should say chambers 4, 5, and 6, you're just going to use your TMK bidding. The page master can only be 692, 529. It's the only key that will pass all of these. I mean, assuming that we're not thinking about the fact that each cylinder is master pinned, 470-529 will work all of these because it's the TMK, but a key that will work this page only and no other pages would be 692-529. And that's what we have here. When you study page 1 of the SPF, you will see the cuts in chambers 1, 2, and 3 are always the same, and that it is only the cuts in chambers 4, 5, and 6 that change. Therefore, our page master can only be 692-529. Why? And I just described. Chambers 1, 2, and 3 are common to every key on the page. Therefore, our page master must have these cuts. Note, 692-529 is not the only key that will operate this page. As a key cut to 680-529, 670-529, as well as our TMK will also operate. But again, that's referring to a reality that those cylinders are master pinned. But those are your 4, 5 pin masters as well as the TMK. And these keys play a role in viewing the system in either its larger context or in its entirety. To create a key that will pass those cuts in chambers 4, 5, and 6, we must use the 3 cuts from the TMK in this position, and that's why we call it a 3-pin master. A 3-pin master governs one page. There would be 64 3-pin masters in this system. If you can make this connection, you have the ability to firmly grasp every aspect of the SPF. We've updated our SPF with the page master as seen here. I've just added that there. And we're going to continue to work on the page. We're going to pick this up. I'm going to break this video and we'll pick it up right now. Moving forward now, the page master will work all biddings on this page and only this page of the set of 64 pages. So that page master 692-529 will only work page 1. Since we are speaking of the page master, which it's a 3-pin master, let's discuss the other masters mentioned just briefly before in some further detail. By the way, the correct industry term is incidental master. All the masters we are about to define are known as incidental masters, and they are very important to know about as they permit you to perform wizardry. And your key system, it will allow your key system to flex its muscles. When it's done correctly. This is the beauty of the SPF, and it allows you to see the biddings you are working with. As we had talked about earlier, and we will talk in depth, I will illustrate where all these incidental masters are. Let's move on and just talk about them. There is a master called the 4-pin master, which would govern 4 pages or a 16th of the 64-page system. There would be 16 of these 4-pin masters, and they are as follows. And what we're doing to rotate those is that we're going to be rotating columns, it looks like E and F is what we'll be rotating. 0, 0, 0. Yeah, so that's what we're doing. So as we rotate columns E and F, we're going to be able to have those 4-pin masters. So 692, let's back up. 692529, that's going to operate page 1. We've already talked about what will operate page 2. It's going to be 694529. What will operate page 3? 696529. Page 4 will be operated by 698529. Well, if you wanted a single master that would work all 4 of those pages, you would simply go to the TMK in the D or the 3rd chamber, the D column, and it would be 690529. So now just focus on 0529, and now you're going to progress only these 2 chambers. And if you recall, if you progress 1 chamber, you get 4 changes in a 2-step system with 10 depths. If you rotate 2 chambers, you get 16 changes. So our first 4-page master, which is a 4-pin master, is certainly going to be 690529. Then it will be 610529. And that 694529 is going to operate pages 5 through 8. Then it'll be 696529. 698529. I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. It's going to be 690529, 610529, 630529, 650529. That is going to be 4 sets of 4 pages. So each one of those masters, 690529, that's going to be a set of 4 pages. 610529 will be a set of 4 pages. 630529. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, and you see where that all comes to. So we're going to be able to come up with, so there's our 16 pages, 69, 61, 63, 65. Then we're going to have 89, 81, 83, 85. So it'll be our second set of 16 pages, which will be pages 17 through 32, is going to be 890529, 810529, 830529, 850529. Then 090529, 010529, 030529, 050529, and so on. And I have all 16 of those 4-pin masters here. And again, each one of these governs 4 pages. 4 times 16 is 64. There would be a master key called the 5-pin master. And that's going to govern 16 pages or a quarter of the 64-page system. And we can certainly, I think, kind of guess where we're going to get that from. We're just going to be rotating the F column at that point. So it's going to be 16 pages are going to be governed by 670529, 870529, 070529, 270529 is what will govern that, and there they R. And then, of course, is there a 6-pin master? Yeah, it's the TMK. When you have a master in common with the TMK in all 6 positions, it is the TMK, 470529. That's what it is. It governs all 64 pages. We won't go into how we know all of the other X-pin masters. There are other, 1-pin masters here and etc. And it's an advanced topic taught properly by the experts in the field. If you want to learn how to find more of those incidental masters, you're probably just better off joining ALOA and taking advantage of all of the classes that they have, as you'll gain tremendously from a proper class, and I fully endorse that behavior. There's also a 2-pin master. Want to guess what a 2-pin master would govern? A 2-pin master would govern either a horizontal group or which is a horizontal group of 4 blocks, which is 16 changes. That's a horizontal group. There's also a vertical group. A vertical group is 4 blocks, which is 16 changes. These are vertical. So there's 4 horizontal groups and 4 vertical groups. Therefore, a single page will have 4 vertical group masters. Those are called VGM, and 4 horizontal group masters. Those are HGM. And I have updated our page 1 of the SPF to show just one of these 2-pin masters. Let's start with the horizontal group master. The horizontal group master will work all 16 keys in its group. And I have drawn a box around and color-coded the group so as to make plain what we're demonstrating. And here it is. Let's take a deeper dive into that. Okay, here's what that first horizontal group looks like, highlighted here, so a little easier to see. And you can see our horizontal group master is 692549. Well, how do we get that? Well, we know it's going to be always 692, and then it's just a matter of what are the cuts that our horizontal group master would have to have so that it passed all 16 of these. Well, in the 4th chamber, you've got a 7 here, then a 9, then a 1, then a 3. Well, okay, so we have to have a cut from the TMK there. 6925. In the 5th chamber, it's all 4s in all these places. So we could have a 4 there. That's good. And then in the 6th chamber, we've got 1, 357, 1, 357. So you can see in the 6th chamber, we're going to need a cut from the TMK, and that's where the 692549 comes from. So that's a 2-pin master because we're borrowing 2 cuts from the TMK, the 5 and the 9, in chambers 4 and 6. There's a horizontal group master here, 1 here, and 1 here. Let's look at a vertical group master. Here is page 1 showing a vertical group master. The same logic. It's a 2-pin master, and when we study these cuts, we figure out what we have to have from the TMK so that we have a single key that works everywhere. Well, in the 4th chamber, we have all 7s, so in the horizontal group master, we needed to borrow the 4th chamber from the TMK, but that's not the case with this vertical group master. So it's 692729. Borrowing the TMK from cuts from the 5th and 6th chambers, the 2 and 9 cut, there will be a vertical group master for this group, 1 for this group, and 1 for this group. Here is page 1 showing both an HGM and a VGM. The green block participates in both the vertical group and horizontal group. And here it is. Now, I don't mean to say that you could use both of these at the same time. You can't. I'm just saying green because, red and blue. So, this is a horizontal group, that's a vertical group. Okay, you wouldn't use these again at the same time, not the entire vertical or the entire horizontal group. Now here is page 1 where I've added all of the horizontal group master keys and all of the vertical group master keys. That's pretty easy. Now there are more incidental masters to point out. On our page there are 16 rows. There are 16 rows, 4 blocks, 4 each, 16 rows. There is a row master for each row. Therefore, there are 16 row masters. So 692-741, 692-941, 692-141, 692-341. As you hear me say those biddings, you might quickly realize, well, that's a one-pin master because there's only one chamber in all 4 of those cuts in that first row. So that's going to be a one-pin master, and there are 16 of those on the page, and they're called row masters, and here they are. It's all the row masters. Sorry. There are more. There are more because there are 16 blocks. And that doesn't mean that there are more, but there are more because each block, this block is 4 biddings, that's a block, that's a block. There are 16 blocks. There is a block master for each block, therefore there are 16 block masters. These are also one-pin masters. The blank boxes to the right of the biddings is where you would populate for key symbols. I will show an example of this shortly. Here's our updated page 1 showing these 16 incidental masters. And at this point, we would consider our page 1 complete. Here are our block masters. I've added cells or fields here where you can then add your standard key coding system nomenclature there. So we've got 4 vertical group, 4 horizontal group, that's 8. We've got 16 row masters, that's 24. So again, 4 vertical group, 4 horizontal group, 16 row masters, that makes 24. But then there's another 16 block masters, so 24 plus 16 is 40 incidental masters. Would it shock you to learn that there are several more incidental masters on this page? In fact, there are indeed 20 more of them, and I will show you in this video shortly where some others are, but it gets to be, I think these are the incidental masters that you need to know about, and the other ones will be left for an advanced topic. And I indeed say discovering those is an advanced topic best left out of this primer. Why are these incidental masters so important to know about? They are very helpful and in fact make building a small system very, very easy to do, and more importantly visualize from the beginning, meaning you can look at a standard progression format page and you can easily visualize what you want to do, what you need to do, probably better said, what you need to do and how you can leverage your work here to give you what you need to do. As Billy B. Edwards, CML, said when referring to seeing all of the incidental masters on your SPF page, it is this possibility which is the greatest advantage of SPF. The very tool, the construct of the standard progression format allows you to visualize, to see, to, in a certain sense, touch what you need to do. Makes it real, makes it tangible. Again, this means you can see what you have to work with. Also, as you consider the SPF, you may see using the SPF keeps you out of trouble, almost preventing you from creating unintentional masters, incidentals, and which are known as ghost keys in your system. Meaning, when you work with only what's on the page, it's kind of hard to shoot yourself in the foot. You can do it if you make a mistake on the SPF and you have biddings that are not correct or proper. You've got, handwritten errors, and I'm sure upcoming I'll have to watch how I print everything out. But it's hard to make a mistake when you stick to what you've created, and if you're not doing cross-keying, then you really aren't going to cause any trouble. Cross-keying will bring you trouble if you don't know how to do it, and there's a chapter on cross-keying which we'll talk about that a little bit. As Jerome Andrews, CML, said, there are a lot more small office buildings than hospitals. And what he was driving at there was taken in context of him starting his career as a young locksmith, and he was worried or concerned, and his words were, do I have enough stuff? Meaning the client's mandate is for me to be able to perform keying on this quantity of cylinders, this level of the scope of job, and the SPF allows you to know if you have enough stuff. But he basically also said, hey, don't worry about it. Don't get too shook over it, because there are a lot more small office buildings than hospitals. You could do a small office building with possibly 1 page of an SPF, or certainly a group of 4 pages. This is certainly true, and using the SPF, just page 1 of your SPF will allow you to likely key up your small office building easily and without error, specifically without the fear of creating pinned cylinders where you have keys operating where they are not intended to operate. That's really the fear. Not knowing if you have rogue keys in the system that will work places they're not supposed to. Therefore, learning the standard progression format saves you from these very dangerous errors, and they can be quite dangerous and full of liability. Let's put our hard work on the SPF to practice with this case in point. We're now going to take what we've kind of learned and we're going to put it into practicality, which I will do again later in this video. We have a 3-floor office building where the GMK operates everything. So GMK, we know it's a 3-level system. 1 master key operates per floor, hence 3 master keys because it's a 3-story building, and each floor requires 8 change keys under each master. Therefore, the expansion specification is 138. You need 1 GMK, 3 MKs, and 8 change keys. Better said, you need 8 change keys under each of the 3 masters, and there are 3 masters under the Grandmaster. You also need 3 changes for janitor closets that will be keyed under the GMK only, and you will have a master key for those 3 janitorial changes only. Okay, so we've got 3 janitors closets, obviously 1 per floor, I'm going to guess, and the janitors closets will be operated by the GMK. You'll have a master for those 3 janitorial closets, and then apparently that's all. So there won't be individual change keys, apparently, by what I've written here. On our page 1, you will see that we have plenty of room for future expansion to this small office building. And what I mean by that is the expansion specification is only 138. So we need 3 masters, 8 change keys under each master, and we can easily accommodate that. And I'll pull back, the curtain, so to speak, on how we do that. On our page 1, we have plenty of room for expansion. So how does the SPF help us visualize this? Below is what the SPF can look like when you are visualizing this project. We will use our page master for the GMK, which is 692529. We will use our vertical group masters for columns 1, 2, and 3 for our masters, which are 692729, 692929, and 692129. And I've highlighted those here in green, our page master in blue. We will see notes and color coding, and yes, you will literally mark up page 1 just like I have done, as this allows neat and clean record keeping, as this is the document where you make all of your notes, meaning the standard progression that you make is going to be the living document that will carry on with the management, the maintenance, and the upkeep of the system. The SPF is a living document, and it is your task and responsibility to yourself, certainly, both yourself today and your future self. And what I mean by that is print neatly. Take time and make very expansive notes. Have you ever looked back at something you wrote and said, what in the gospel was I thinking? But your responsibility is to your client, most absolutely. You need to be able to deliver the client answers today and in the future. Keep the document up to date, accurate record keeping, and most certainly stored securely. If this were to fall in someone's hands, it would be quite easy for the entire system to be compromised immediately. Let's define with a blue box the grandmaster key and the three green boxes as master keys. The gray boxes are the 24 change keys, and that I also filled in red the max violations. Note, AA1 through AA8 change keys operate only under the AA master and is the same with the A, B, and AC changes. Here's our finished product as seen here. We will use industry standard symbols. Okay, blowing that up a little bit just so that I can give you a little better show. So the entire page 1 is now displayed exactly where we are. Sorry. I'm trying to get that a little cleaner, and I'm not doing a good job with it. Okay. Now, there is a TMK 470529. And in the entire context of what we've been talking about, it's always been the TMK. This is a 3-level system. But what's all this business about using the page master as a TMK? And then making a single page a 3-level system? Well, the truth of the matter is you can. You can do that because the size of your job is so limited in scope that you can literally create a 3-level system by using a single page. Be mindful, there's another 63 pages. So if your client comes to you in a year and say, hey, I just bought 3 more office buildings. Can you handle it? You darn right I can. The only problem that you would have is you didn't pin in the TMK. So you might need to pin in the TMK if the client wanted all 4 office buildings under a single key. But that's a conversation that you should have with the client up front and say, hey, listen, what do you think you're going to do in the future? You think you're going to buy more office buildings? How much further do you need this key to actually go? Is this key going to be a sprinter or a marathon runner? You know, what scope of real estate do you need it to cover? So you try to have that conversation as best as possible. But we need a 3-level system, so we can take our page master and treat it as the great grandmaster. The grandmaster. Then our vertical group masters can be the second level, the level 2 portion. Those can be the masters. And then our change keys can literally come from the blocks. Sure, we happen to have a block master here and a block master here and here and here and here. Doesn't matter. We're not going to use that. That key exists. It's nice to know that it exists. And here's why it's nice to know. We know that there's a block master for each one of these blocks. We know that there's a row master for each one of these rows. Okay? So should your client call up and say, hey, on the first floor where I've got, the AA is the floor master, can you give me a key that operates, some of these doors? Can you give me a key that operates, a couple doors? Well, you can cut a block master, and it will operate everything within this block. So if your client wants a key that will just operate these 2, the block master is going to operate AA3 and AA4 as well. But if your client says, well, the first floor, that has a need for human resources, and we have to put human resources and payroll onto their own master and maybe one other door. You could rekey those 3 doors into this block, use the block master to run those 3, and you never cut the other key. You wipe out that other key. So you could do that in the future. That would work out really elegantly. You could also use a horizontal row master for that as well. You might want to use real estate that's kind of compromised. So in this scenario, if the client literally had 3 doors they needed to have key to like, you could literally come down to this row because you've already lost one to a max violation. Use that row master. So you could do it down here as well. So we have AA1 through AA8, AB1 through AB8, AC1 through AC8. We've got our change keys, level 1. We've got our master keys, level 2. We've got our page master, which is really now our TMK in the sense of this application. So that's a really beneficial way to use the standard progression format. You can visualize it. And I just took that job of this work, and I've made it very easy to understand. Now, what I've not done is I can tell you that I've forgotten to lay out our janitorial closets. That's easy. We can do that. We have, what did we say we needed for that? We need, there are 3 janitor's closets that will be keyed under the GMK only, and you'll have a master for those closets. Okay, that's pretty easy. So the page master is the GMK. I can go right down. I can go, well, I can't use anything here because those block masters are max violations. But I could pick out a row. That would probably be pretty nice. I could do 692.707. I could do this row. I could key all 3 of those janitors' doors to 692.507. Okay. I would cross off these biddings. I would never use those. This would run my 3 janitors' closets, as would my TMK or my page master. That would suit that. I didn't indicate that on here. I should have. I've clearly forgot to do that. I may go back and update that. I'm getting the impression that I'm not going to, though. Okay, let's zoom this back out just a little bit. Lastly, above, I assign key symbols only for illustration, as you would only assign key symbols when you use those biddings. What I mean to say is, don't go in filling the rest of all these blanks with other standard key coding system values. I don't think you should. I don't. And the reason I don't is because if it's blank, that means I've not used it. If I fill it in, then I wonder, well, did I use that? Why did I assign it a key symbol? So leave them blank. If the key symbol area is blank, then that tells you that bidding is free to use. We are using a new term here, key symbols. Key symbols come out of the standard key coding system, abbreviated SKCS. And in fact, we will learn all about key symbols and the SKCS next. So I've dove in and started using terms that I haven't explained yet. Before we move on, can you guess what the 65th change key would be in this system? If you guessed 692.741, no. If you guessed okay, I read it wrong. If you guessed 694.721, 694.741, forgive me, 694.741, that is correct. The 65th change would be on page 2, and it would be right here. We know this as we have rotated our A, B, and C columns completely. To generate a fresh new page, we need to go to the next progression possibility, which is in the D column or the 3rd column. So it would be 694.741, and then every other number on the page stays the same. So if you took this page and changed the 2 in the 3rd column, the 3rd chamber, or the D sequence of progression chamber, to a 4, it's all the same with the one exception of that change. It's that simple. The next progression possibility is the 4 cut. Therefore, page 1 above is identical to page 2, except the 2 cut in the 3rd chamber is now replaced with a 4 cut, and the page master is now 694.529. If you study this and these concepts from here and other sources, primarily other sources that are better, more well written, it will prove easy to grasp this. Now we're going to go on to the standard key coding system. This will talk about what is all of this goodness here. What is AC5? What does that mean? Let's jump into it. Okay, this video is going to continue on, and we're going to actually write out a standard progression page by hand. Okay, so let's start with the KBA. We're going to use our same TMK, the 470529 is what we're going to use. So let me draw that out. And just going to create a box here. Now every page in the standard progression format is going to basically have a KBA up here. It's always going to be there. This is our TMK. This is our SOP, our sequence of progression. So I'll put a line down here, F, E, D, C, B, A. And I will fill in my progression possibilities. Now you can fill these in any way you like. I start at the top, the TMK number, and I just fill in as if it was an odometer. So it would be 1, 3, 5, 7. My next would be 4680. You could enter these values in numerical order, excluding the one that's here. Although this is a bad, well, no, it's not a bad example. You could fill it in 4680 or 0468. You're going to get the same numbers on your standard progression page, just in a different order. It doesn't matter. Do it the way that you like. I do it the way that I'm used to doing it. If I make any mistakes, I will attempt to correct them immediately. So here's our KBA. So the standard progression format, this is going to be page number 1. First of all, we can see that there's going to be a page master. Our first key on the page is going to be 692741. Our page master is going to be 692529, and I'll show you why, but I'm going to write that down here. Six, 529. And I'm not going to be concerned about max right now. So let's begin writing out our progression possibilities in the sense of harvesting biddings out of here. So this is a two-step system, so we're going to have 4 blocks vertically and 4 blocks horizontally. I think we'll fit them all in if we just start right at this corner. So we know that our first key is going to be 692741. So I'm going to fill that in. And we're going to rotate the A column first. So that means that what we need to do, and it's really just a matter of a lot of writing and repeating is what I'm trying to say. So this is going to be our progression possibilities. 1, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. Okay, it's always going to be 4, 7, 2, 6, 9 here. It's going to be that for all of these. So 692, 743, 692, 745, 692, 747. This is our first block. Okay, let's draw our second block. What's going to be the next key? What's the first key in the first row of the second block? Well, what is going to be the next chamber to rotate? So we've used the 4, and if you recall, it would be 6, 9, 2, 7, 4, 1, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 7. We have to now rotate and go to the 6 in the B column. So 6, 6, 6, 6, 1, 3, 5, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 2, 2, 2, 2, 9, 9, 9, 9, 6, 6, 6, 6. Now you're starting to see the pattern. Let's draw our third block. Let's just draw our fourth block. What's the pattern so far? 1, 3, 5, 7. Let's just fill those in. We know that we're rotating this column every 4. So it's going to be 4, 4, 6, 8, 0. 8, 8, 8, 8, 0, 0, 0, 0. I'm going to fill in the rest. None of those change. And I think a lot of doing or writing out a standard progression format is, again, just memorizing patterns and just executing the work. I mean, will you want to proofread to make sure you're not making a mistake? Absolutely, or you're going to key up cylinders incorrectly. So here's our first vertical group. After that, all we now need to do is do the balance of the 3 vertical groups. So I'm going to draw the first block of the second vertical group. What's going to be the very first key here? So think about patterns. We know that the A column is going to change every single time. We know that the B column is going to change vertically every block. What's left to change? Well, our C column. The C column is going to change vertically every 4 columns. Every vertical column, the C progression possibility is going to change. So if it's 7 here, what's going to be the C column over here? Well, it's 9. We've used up 4, 7, 1, 4, 7, 3, I'm saying it backwards. We've used up 7, 4, 1, 7, 4, 3, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 7, haven't we? We've used up 7, 6, 1, 7, 6, 3, 7, 6, 5, 7, 6, 7, haven't we? We've used up 7, 8, 1, 7, 8, 3, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 7 down here. We've used up 7, 0, 1, 7, 0, 3, 7, 0, 5, 7, 0, 7 down here. It's all used up. The next rotation is going to be to make the 7, the 9 in the C column. What will be the next block over? What's going to change now? The 1. The C column is going to have a 1. What's going to change after that? What's left? The 3. That column is going to be a 3. Then all I'm going to do is fill in the rest of the blocks and literally duplicate all my work in the A and B columns on all of these, and then write 6, 9, 2 another 48 times. That's all that this is. So I'm going to do that now. So this is always where I take an opportunity to proofread what I'm doing. So we know it's always going to be 6, 9, 2 in columns 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to quickly check, and even my poor handwriting or printing aside, we've got $692 everywhere. We've always got to have 7 in the third column. It's always 7, always 9 in the second vertical group, always 1 in the third vertical group in the C column, and then 3. And that's literally coming from right here, 7913. We know that we're going to then change the B column. 4s will always be in the first horizontal group. 680, 6, 8, 0. You can see I made a mistake there, but it's 0, 0. Then 1357, 1357. We just proofread that that's what we've got. Again, awful handwriting aside, we've got it. Now, we've got a foundation of a page 1 of a 64-page system. Super easy. What would be the first key on page 2? Well, you're going to rotate the D column. We've rotated completely columns A, B, and C. You're going to rotate the D column. Every 2 on this page in the third column or the D column is going to become a 4. Every other number on this page is going to be the same on page 2. Page 3 is going to be a 6. Page 4 will be an 8. What you could do is you could have written this out neater than what I did, left out this 2 here, left out all these 2s, taken this, photocopied it, fill in all your 2s, fill in all your 4s, fill in all your 6s, fill in all your 8s. Now you've got 4 pages of a system. So pretty simple and straightforward. Now, let's kind of pull this apart a little bit and see why this is a valuable document if you're going to be able to key stuff. First of all, there are 64 changes on this page, as you know. You could go through and immediately cross out all of the max violations, which is, depending on the size of the system, I would do that. I may not do it if I'm just keying up 12 locks. I may not be too concerned about going in here and these 9 zeros, crushing all of these, blanking all of these out. I don't permanently remove them. I just would draw a line, or I would highlight it to say, don't use these. These are max violations. Because I still want to see what's here. Because I'm going to question myself whether or not I've left something out. I don't want to leave anything out. So let's look at some of those masters that are also on this page. If we were to study the first row only, what does this first row have in common? It's all got a 692. It's all got a 41. What would be the row master here? It can only be one answer. It has to be 692. You've got a 7, a 9, a 1, and a 3. So in the C column, use the master. 5. We got a 4 everywhere. Pardon me, we have a 4 everywhere, and we have a 1 everywhere. So that row master is going to be 692, 541. This key will work all 4 of these cylinders. I can do that for all 16 rows. There will be a row master for all of them. The next one, I mean, you can easily predict what it's going to be. The only thing that changes here is the 3. The 1 goes to 3. 1 goes to 3, 1 goes to 3, 1 goes to 3. 692, 543. 692, 545. 692, sorry about that, 547. My little light went out, but that's okay. Still bright enough. So I can fill in all of these row masters. That's cool. That's what's called a one-pin master because it has one pin in common with the TMK, the 5. That's the 1-pin master. Let's do another easy one. An easy one would be a block master. What would be the master that would work these for? Well, it's pretty much in front of you, I suppose. 69274 is all common, in common. Go up to the master and grab the 9. So the block master here is going to be 692749. There's a block master for all of these blocks. Wherever you don't have a commonality of what you're trying to create a master for, you pull it out of the TMK. This is a 1-pin master because it has 1 pin in common with the TMK. There is a horizontal group master. This is a horizontal group. All 4 of these is a horizontal group. What would be the horizontal group master for this? It's going to be a 2-pin master, because you're always going to have 692. You're always going to have 4. The third and the first column, you'll have to pull those biddings from the TMK. There'll be 2 cuts of the TMK in the vertical group the horizontal group master is what this is. So the horizontal group master has to be 6925449. And when you study that, you say, okay, it could only be this. We've got to have a variable here on the third column and a variable here on the first column of progression. This is the 6th chamber. And when I say variable, I mean you pull the bidding out of here. Every one of these is going to have a horizontal group master. All of them will have one. There's also a vertical group master. You'll have a vertical group master for all of these. Let's do it. 692 is everywhere. We know that. There's a 7 everywhere. The second sequence of progression, your B chamber and your A chamber constantly change. So this vertical group master is going to be 6922729. That's a 2-pin master. They will all have that. There are many other incidental masters on this page. Many. A lot. Every 4th key in every group. Every 4th key in every block, there's a master for that. 692741, 692761, 692781. Okay, you see where this is going. There's a 1-pin master there, which is going to be 692721. So this one, this one, this one, this one. There's a 1-pin incidental master there. There's a 1-pin incidental master for the second row of each block. And it goes on and on and on. Advanced technique, I suppose, to worry about pulling out every incidental. But we've covered the ones that you should know. Your row masters, your block masters, your horizontal group masters, and your vertical group master. So this vertical group master covers all this. This horizontal group master covers this. Your block master covers this. Your horizontal row master covers all of that. And you have that for each vertical group has a master. Each horizontal group has a master. Each block has a master. Each row has a master all the way down. Now, why is that important? Well, it's nice to know that they're there because they can really come into a position where they're quite convenient to have. And here's what I mean. You're going to do a job and, there's 20 locks. Okay, great. There's 20 locks. There's 20 cylinders, forgive me. So you can pick out what numbers you want. But let's say of these 20, there is, you've got 20 cylinders. Let's say that you have payroll. Let's say that you have exterior doors. Payroll, exterior doors. Let's say that you have sales. Then let's say that you have a common area, bathrooms, maybe some sort of access to a break room, things like that. Let's say that payroll has 5 doors. Let's say that there are 3 exterior doors. Let's say that there are 10 sales doors, and then there are 2 common. I'm making up numbers. Okay, fine. You've got 20 cylinders here. Pick out 20 biddings and key them, right? Great. No, don't do that, because payroll says I need a master for my payroll department. You want a single key that will work the exterior. You want a single key that will work sales and a single key that will work your commons, because the common you'll pass out to everybody. And we're already somewhat into an advanced topic, I suppose, but the fact of the matter is payroll has 5 keys. I'm going to need to use 5 biddings. What's my master going to be? Well, it's going to be my vertical group master. That's my payroll master. So all of a sudden now, all these biddings in here are kind of going to be classified as payroll, because any other biddings I pull out of here will operate from that payroll master, and you may not want that. So you might need to strike the rest of these, or the rest of these biddings, the remaining 11, are all going to be for future expansion for the payroll department. Exterior, that's pretty easy. Let's just go down here. Let's say that these 3 biddings are for exterior, and that your master for the exterior is going to be your block master, which will be 692309. That's your exterior master right here. Sales has 10. Well, we're going to need to get into 3 blocks. Or let's do it this way. Let's say horizontally. You're going to need to get into 3 of these blocks horizontally. So all of this is now going to be sales. I'm going to use this bid. I'm going to use all 4, all 8. I'm going to use all 10 of these biddings, for sales. My master is going to be the horizontal group master, which is going to be 692569. That's my sales. So I've got payroll, exterior, sales, common. Pick them anywhere you like. I would personally probably pull it from down here so that I keep myself an entire horizontal group. This vertical group is kind of used up because I've moved into it. Well, have I? I've got payroll, I've got exterior, I've got sales. I know that I'm going to be using this for sales. No. Well, I can't do that. I've made a mistake. Payroll, we grabbed all of this, so we took all of this for payroll. So now sales, we can still, what can we do? Sales, we're going to go to a vertical group. So let's take sales and move sales here. And then all of this will become sales. That's no problem. All of this is payroll. That's no problem. Sales goes away. Sales is over here. What is our vertical group master for sales? They need 10 doors. Well, we got 16 in that area, so we're fine. Payroll only needed 5, but they've got 16. So our vertical group master is going to be 692929. Sales, payroll is good. Sales is good. Exterior is down here. We've not encroached into that at all. That's exterior is good. Common, okay, well, we've got to pull it out of here. We don't actually. What we can do, well, we probably, if you were to use a block here for common, you only need 2 biddings. The problem is, no, we don't have a problem because this is the block master. That'll get in here. you have nothing used over here. We could grab this entire block for common, and then we can use the block master, which would be 692389. That could be our block master for common, and then use these two biddings for common. And here's our common. Okay, so exterior is here, common is here. We've got our payroll, we've got our sales. That is how you wield the standard page progression format. I apologize for that breach of common sense that I had there. I apologize for that. And generally, if I really made a mess of it like this, I would then, before I did any keying, I would transpose all of this onto a clean sheet, because I need to know what the heck I did. And I'm always going to date this. I think today's the 14th. No, it's the 13th. Okay, I'm always going to date this. I would leave myself copious notes. If I needed another page, notes. I would staple that together. I would keep that. If I got too illegible is what I'm driving at, I would definitely rewrite all that, because I am not going to forget what I did. So this becoming a worksheet is a good exercise. So you've just keyed up, an office, a floor in an office building, and you did it quickly. You did it very quickly. So that wraps up how to put together a page of a standard progression format. Thank you. So we've just spent a pretty epic amount of time talking about the SPF, but it's really the stock and trade of the locksmith. It's the standard documentation that you need to have an understanding of how to create that standardized template in order for you to successfully wield the power of locksmithing and the science of locksmithing. So think of it as the way in which you approach doing something. I've done plenty of systems where it's a master and 3 change keys. My goodness. I mean, that's like, I've done hundreds of those. And I don't write out an entire SPF. I just, literally look at the client's records and make sure that the geography of where this building is doesn't contaminate anything else. And I will be mindful of what I've done in the past. I've consulted the prior records for this client, and I know where everything is. But the argument to make the SPF is, if I generated an entire 5-pin SPF, that would be very helpful. And I say that because I had a client in about 1992. He walked in and said, "Hey, I need you to key this building for me." Okay, great. Well, for the next 20 years, he kept buying more 3-flats, more 3-flats, more 3-flats. And it got to a situation where, "Hey, will you tell me everything that you're going to do in life?" He's like, "Hey, if I had a crystal ball, I would tell you everything I'm going to do in life." That project was easy for him because he had one master that governed all of these different buildings, and some of them were quite close to each other. And that was okay because he was the only person with the master key. What may have been better for him is to have a grandmaster that operated all the buildings for him only, and then individual building masters, maybe for cleaning crews, maybe for work that have to be done on a particular building, and then also all of the individual change keys. So here I am looking at files of 30 different buildings, what changes were used, what changes were used. And because the system wasn't planned initially, it's more work down the road. If you expect that you're going to be doing key work, the investment in creating the SPF up front is easily justified. Potentially the investment of having software that will do it is easily justified, because you shouldn't spend your time, which I have just shown, writing all these numbers out, which is quite prone to error, as I believe I successfully proved. And if you have an understanding of the locksmithing principles and science, you can again look at that software and say, I know where that's coming from. I understand why that's there. I'm comfortable to proceed. So there's a major argument to make to spending the time to create the standard progression format. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next topic, which is the SKCS standard key coding symbol system. Thank you.